of nowhere appeared Arkady's aunt, Angelina Mikhailovna, whom we had never heard of despite living for many years. We only knew that she resided somewhere in the south, was unmarried, childless, and nothing else. One day, a letter arrived from Angelina, expressing her desire to connect with her nephew and learn about his life. However, she curiously addressed it to Arkady's wife, Liudmila. In the letter, she introduced herself as alive and well, and proposed to communicate via Skype, which she uniquely pronounced as Skype. Despite being a highly educated woman, Angelina had her own peculiar ways of using language. She referred to her website as site and had an unpronounceable word for her account. Angelina also expressed her eagerness to visit and spend the entire summer, offering to assist around the house. Initially wary of this unfamiliar woman's request, Liudmila eventually agreed to Angelina's visit, but only for a shorter period, as she wanted to rest during her vacation. Moreover, Liudmila had been working with children all year and needed a break. She also planned to take her grandson to the south in August. Upon returning from work, Luda spent the remaining days before her vacation tending to the garden. However, she failed to weed one section and decided to leave it for later. On the first day of her vacation, her aunt arrived, and Luda spent the morning tidying up the house and preparing a room for her relative. She also cooked lunch and dinner, after which she and her husband drove to the city to meet their aunt and purchase groceries. As they waited for the train to arrive, they saw their aunt standing on the platform with her bags, including a bright red suitcase. Despite her age, she appeared dignified in her fashionable white denim pantsuit, with long black hair draped over her shoulders. After a quick examination of Luda and her nephew, the aunt climbed into the car with an air of haughtiness. During the drive, Arkady asked his aunt how she managed to reach their village, and she proceeded to share an endless stream of stories about her travels and visits to people, particularly abroad. She boasted about her many gifts and how much she was loved by her hosts, all while insisting that she only brought a small suitcase with her. Luda wanted to make a joke about the small suitcase but refrained, unsure of how her aunt would react. And so they arrived at their destination. Upon meeting Luda and Arkady's grandchildren, Angelina presented them with gifts, a cockerel on a stick for one and an apple for the other, which she claimed was a treat she had on the train. After examining the house and yard, Angelina seemed pleased, or at least pretended to be, and retired to her assigned room. She spent a long time rummaging through her bulky trunks, searching for something, before emerging in a house suit and proudly carrying a single brown tomato, which she proclaimed to be the tastiest and healthiest vegetable grown in the fertile land of the Caucasus under the southern sun. Liudmila pondered whether to share the tomato with everyone else or keep it as a memento of her aunt's generosity. They eventually cut it up and found it to be delicious, with a distinct southern flavor that differed from what they grew in their own greenhouse in the north. Before dinner, Angelina insisted on being addressed by her first name, Lena, in a foreign manner. She took her seat at the generously set table, did not refuse a couple of glasses of red wine, enjoyed the meal, and retired to bed. Her snoring could be heard from outside. Thus began Liudmila's vacation. Every morning, after a good night's sleep, Angelina wanted a hearty breakfast of porridge, casseroles, eggs or scrambled eggs, sandwiches, and coffee, always served at a different temperature. She was particularly offended if the coffee wasn't to her liking. Angelina arrived and greeted Luda and Arkady's grandchildren with presents, a cockerel on a stick and an apple that she had received on the train. After inspecting the house and yard, Angelina settled into her room and began searching through her trunks for something. Eventually, she emerged wearing a house suit and holding a brown tomato that she proclaimed was the tastiest and healthiest vegetable grown under the southern sun. Luda contemplated dividing the tomato among the others or keeping it as a relic of her aunt's generosity. They ultimately decided to cut it up and share it, finding it delicious. Angelina insisted on being called by her first name, Lena, and every morning she demanded a hearty breakfast of porridge, casseroles, eggs, sandwiches, and coffee. She would complain loudly if the coffee wasn't hot enough, despite sitting next to the kettle that she could easily turn on herself. After finishing breakfast, Angelina would leave all the cups and plates on the table and take a cup of coffee with just 2 fingers, declaring that it was too cold. She would then retire for a quiet hour, complaining about any noise. Despite claiming to want to help, Angelina reprimanded Luda for not threshing the carrot bed and wandered around the yard all day, occasionally testing the children's Russian knowledge or venturing outside the plot to the nearby lake. When Luda and the children went to pick blueberries in the nearby woods, Angelina got lost in the bushes and had to be rescued by a nephew. She spent her life living alone and constantly criticized Luda for her cooking, cleaning, and bed-making skills. During the day, Arkady was occupied with work, while in the evenings he would either go fishing or tend to his vegetable garden on his tractor. As a result, his interaction with his aunt was limited to morning and evening greetings. For a whole week, Liudmila waited for her aunt to offer some help, but to no avail. Eventually, she decided to ask her directly. "Angelina Mikhailovna, are you on vacation?" she asked. "Yes," her aunt replied. "So am I," Liudmila exclaimed. "Would you mind cleaning up after yourself?" Angelina took offense at these words and pouted. Every night, she would lock her room and make noises, rearranging things from one place to another. She later confessed that she had kept a large sum of money in her room, which she feared would be stolen. It turned out that she had invested the money in various banks, which had since closed down, and Angelina had taken legal action and won the case. Some of the money was still kept in her trunks, and she named exorbitant amounts that Liudmila and Arkady had never even dreamed of. 2 weeks later, they visited the village where Angelina had spent her youth, and Liudmila stayed with her sister and children. Before the trip, Angelina repeatedly asked if the windows and doors were securely locked and if there was any risk of thieves breaking in. On their way to the village, they stopped at a store in town, but Angelina was taken aback by the prices of the products and quickly ran out of there, complaining of a headache. It was a 5-hour drive. Aunt whined that she was hungry, even though she ate sandwiches and drank tea from a thermos that was in the car. "We had to stop at a roadside cafe." The relative got out of the car right away and went for a walk. There was a lot of different kinds of food in the cafe, and everyone could choose for themselves. Liudmila was waiting for her aunt to ask what she would like to eat and order, but she did not show up, and Luda, not knowing what to take for her, decided to let her buy it herself. The aunt came in from the street and sat down at the table. When she found out that her lunch was not taken, she got angry, and when she looked at the prices, she was horrified. But there was no way out. She wanted to eat, bought food, and while she ate, all she resented that it was very expensive. As a guest, she managed to make not only Liudmila mad, but also all the relatives. On leaving the house, the overly thrifty aunt forgot her windbreaker. The grief was universal. Every morning, she reminded Luda to call her relatives and ask them to send it over. The weather that summer was cool, and my aunt, who had lived most of her life in the south, didn't like the winds and low temperatures. She often said, "It's cold here. If I had my windbreaker here, I'd be on my way home." But when relatives sent her a windbreaker, she didn't really want to leave. She said she hadn't had enough yet. She lived for more than a month, and when Luda and her grandson went south, she went home after all. Luda didn't pack any presents in her red suitcase. That's the kind of aunt that came to visit. Subscribe to our channel not to miss new interesting life stories. Give us your likes, write your opinion in the comments.